Good morning, everybody. How are you on this? No, it's a very overcast day here today. I'm hoping we don't get any rain. Let me start by saying hi to a few people who are in here. We have a good morning, and great to see you up, or you're with us today. Please take it easy so you continue to get better. Good morning, Kath. Good morning, Rose. We'll see you when you get back from your x-ray. I'm getting ready to prep your walking frame as it is. We'll bling it out. Who else have we got in here to this morning? Oh, it's a small start to the morning, but that's fine. We have Diamonds, Dreams, and Coffee Beans, Cassandra, Sarah.
I just got a notice that the live is starting.
Yeah, there. Mine will come through soon. Good morning, Jeremy. How are you this morning? Hey, DQ. Hey, Susie. And I would like to welcome the lovely Amber with us today, following what's been happening this month with our Autism Awareness Month. Amber is going to have a chat to us about what it's like to be with her beautiful child with autism. So, Amber, welcome to the craziness.
Yeah. I think this one will be interesting because we've heard a lot about high needs, whereas my son is low needs.
Nah, so you're the different end of the
Yeah.
spectrum.
Low needs, but very little social skills and really good grades, but doesn't really make friends. If I look down, it's because I'm looking at the chat. Sorry.
That's okay. I have it right in front of me. Hey, Rose, how are you?
Thank you, Susie.
Happy birthday to Trapper.
I'll just say hi to everyone because the chat's moving quicker than I can read.
Hey, Viv, how are you? Rose, I'm fantastic this morning, starting to get things going in here. Got to clear a lot away today, but I've also got a lot of other things to do. Hey, Lisa, how are you? Hey, Sarah, welcome. Good to see you home. Hopefully you don't have to shoot out again. Okay, so Amber, I'm new at doing this part of things. It's normally Rose who does it. So would you like to tell us a bit about your story with your wonderful son?
Okay. He's 15 years old now. The pregnancy was rough. I actually put on Instagram a little reel so you could see just how large I was at 7 months. You know, it kind of showed that I had polyhydramnios, which affects a baby. Sorry, I got my hair. And the diagnosis came pretty quick. I think it was around age 3. And they immediately had him put into a special ed preschool program to help him learn to speak and, use the restroom. And it was a long haul. I mean, he quit wearing, pull-ups when he was 5, but we still had accidents at school all the way through 5th grade. So I'm trying to look to see if people have questions.
Was he in a special needs school at this stage?
We had a special needs program at the school that he was going to, because they don't really have schools that are specific to special needs. They just kind of throw them into the regular school system with, one room for all kids that had special ed. So he ended up, at first he was there all the time. He was in about 3rd grade. They finally let him be 80% in regular classroom and 20% in the special ed classroom. And like I said, he still had accidents, but the teachers were understanding. And a couple of his teachers on 2 different years had had experience with Asperger's, which I know now is considered high needs, which is good because I didn't know until Rose mentioned that the Asperger, Mr. Asperger, whatever, like used the kids, experimented on them, things like that.
Oh,
So now
goodness.
I just call him low needs. I won't use Asperger's generally anymore. But yeah, once we got to middle school, we did have a situation because, the kids knew he was a little bit different. He had to wear headphones to reduce the noise because too much noise would upset him. And he was a runner at that point. Yeah,
Oh,
it got better when he got in the middle school. But then we had a situation where some of the kids, they knew. And one of them kept touching his butt. So I went all out on the school and everything and nailed them for it. And I just started homeschooling him. And he hasn't wanted to go back to regular school since. So, and I had to get certified to be able to homeschool him too.
I could just imagine, because that would be hard enough for a, a regular student. I don't really like you putting kids with autism in a box, but for a regular student going to school, getting touched up and that sort of thing, let alone having someone with special needs. And I know, as we were talking behind the scenes, I've got a grandson who's autistic, and that would have sent him off. So I can imagine just how hard it was for your son to have to put up with that.
He didn't even tell me at first, because to him it didn't quite dawn on him that wasn't okay, even though we had spoken from the time he was little at home, that no one's supposed to touch you except for the doctor and mommy, because his dad's not in the picture. So
Yep.
he never bonded with his dad. His dad was actually in Iraq when I had him.
Oh,
And
yep.
he was a preemie. I was 7 months. And by the time his dad did get back here, he was already 8 months old. And Jaden wasn't bonding, except for with his big brother, my older son, Michael. They bonded really good, and there's a certain amount of bonding that naturally came with me because I breastfed him.
Yep.
So, but other than that, there aren't a whole lot of people he's been able to emotionally connect to.
I guess it would have been really hard for him to understand that this person has not really been in his life, even though Dad is in his life, but he's not seeing him, so it's basically a stranger to him.
Yeah. And now that he's older and he's figured out more about his dad, and he doesn't know the details, he just knows that mommy and daddy got divorced, because some of those details I don't share much with
Well,
anybody. I have shared some of it with you guys, but it was bad.
Kids really don't need to know the details of a mum and dad divorce. Really, when you tell kids too much, and I know that my parents divorced, but I was a lot older. But even when I divorced my children's dad, there were nothing was shared. So it sort of shelters them in a way, but it doesn't put the other parent in a bad light.
Yeah. I did a lot of making excuses for why his dad wasn't showing up, because he had supervised visitation. But after a couple of years, the therapist who I was seeing along with Jaden so we could work here explained to me that I can tell him, don't worry about it, but lying to him to cover it up would only make Jaden not trust me in the future.
Yeah.
So I learned not to, cover up for his dad. I would just say, oh, well, let's go do something right, ourselves. And we live right by a park. So we can actually reach the park from our no outlet neighborhood.
Oh, nice.
There's a lake that we have access to, the park, and then there's a forest preservation right behind over there. Because I'm pointing and no one knows what I'm talking about.
That's okay. So, I understand. I read sign language well. So when he was with him, your experiences with him being a runner, was there anything that the school actually did to try and avoid children in his situation from from taking the leap and running away?
Not really. When it came to assemblies and everything, I always had to be there. And the one big time where he did run and we lost him and the school had to go on modified lockdown till we found him, it was because I wasn't in the auditorium at the time. And even with the noise reducing headphones, all kids were getting really riled up because the teachers were doing a really cool 12 Days of Christmas thing.
Mm-hmm.
And he ran, and it took probably about 45 minutes to find him. And he had found this little tiny nook, behind the office that no one would ever check, and was
Oh my
there the whole
goodness.
time. But yeah, I had to just volunteer at the school because they didn't try to help when it came to that. The biggest thing they really did for him is because he wasn't comfortable using regular bathrooms, because it had the automatic flush, which would
Mm-hmm.
scare him. So when he had to go to the bathroom, they would have him go to the nurse's office and use the bathroom in there. So
Oh, that is, I can't believe that if they'll integrate kids into special needs kids into a normal schooling environment, that they would not cater for the fact of, like, I know over here when my grandson, the school he was in, I think he's had to move out of there since then because they're having a housing issue at the moment. But the school he was in was fully fenced with child-proof, child-lock gates. So there's no way the kids could actually, if they were to run, all they would be able to would be to run to a gate. I can't believe the schools would not put some sort of fencing in place to at least contain them to the school.
yeah,
That would
and the
terrify me.
the preschool portion of the school was a little bit separate, and they had their own playground, and it was fenced.
Mm-hmm.
But trigger warning for people: after Sandy Hook, they completely set up the school so that you couldn't come in any of the doors without being let in or having a
Mm-hmm.
pass, but the kids could get out the doors. So I had to get a special visitor pass so that I could open and shut doors.
Oh, goodness. But I
But
guess that's also trying to keep the kids safe.
yeah, because we've had several incidences out here, but it's never gotten out of hand. There have been kids who brought guns to school. There was an incident last month where some kids jumped an autistic boy in the bathroom.
Oh, that's disgusting. That
Yeah.
really is.
And I made the mistake of watching the video because there were other kids in the bathroom videotaping it.
Just happily taping while
Yeah,
that's
there was one in the background that was like, let up, leave him alone. But everyone else was just laughing and had their phones videotaping it, and he ended up, when they caught the fight, well, it wasn't a fight because he was being beat, on the back of his head. They pulled him into a nurse's office, didn't call, for paramedics, had kept him there when he needed help. And it wasn't until his mom got there and got him to the hospital. But I mean, emotionally and physically, he's damaged now because of it. And it's,
So does the school hold any repercussions for kids that do that sort of behavior?
the kids will get expelled. The bad thing, though, is if you defend yourself or you defend another student, you can get expelled too, because there's zero tolerance bullying. They don't take into account that sometimes kids need to defend themselves.
Yeah,
You know.
that unfortunately happens here too. I had a friend of mine we were living in Victoria at the time, and we had her niece stay with us, and she was defending herself from a bully, and the school targeted both of them, which I totally disagreed with. But that is really that is right, Cindy. What is there in our future if you're not teaching kids now that everyone is different, and you don't treat, I don't care who it is, you do not treat them like that. You do not bully anyone, and it has to stop.
Yeah. It's frustrating. That incident just solidified my choice to keep homeschooling him, because there was a fear that came into me that could happen and I wouldn't be around to help him. And
what if it was him?
yeah, but he does know how to defend himself. When he was 7 years old, we were trying to figure out how to get him less, affected by noise because he had sensory processing disorder. And one of the things that my dad, my biological dad, told me to do, because he's a 10th degree black belt, is he said, put him in classes, since you teach at the school already. So at the age of 7, we put him in, and it's a mixed martial arts school that I was working at. So he learns, calisthenics, for Filipino martial arts. And I can't even think of all the ones. It was just a mixture that Sifu Lenderman had done. And that school was run by, he goes by Sifu, not Sensei, because it was, a lot of the different Chinese arts and Filipino arts as well. But we got him up to the point where he was a brown belt.
Yep.
And then he started getting a little bit too brave. So I pulled back on that. Yeah.
Is it something you may get him into later on down the track? Back into it?
I might. I mean, let me put it this way. He's just like my brother, who also has, low needs. And my brother had said, he was worried when he was like, if Jaden knows how to do this and he gets really mad because he does have a temper, because that's part of the social emotional issues, that he could start a fight and get in trouble or hurt somebody really bad. So that's always been a concern. Because, he's given his brother a bloody nose before when he was younger. He clocked me in the jaw with his foot one time when I was trying to put shoes on him and he didn't want the shoes. So.
Yeah, one thing I know with Harley is if he doesn't want to do something, there's nothing you can do to make him do it. It's on his terms or no terms.
Yeah, we had that problem. It's a little bit better, but not completely. It's still a fight of trying to get him to do what he needs to do without yelling at him, because he shuts down if you yell. So I try to explain everything to him, and he's really good at coming back with the most off the wall but making sense kind of things, excuses, for his behavior. So it's interesting. But
hey, Judy.
I think that's really the biggest difference between, high needs versus low needs is people don't see it unless they're around him a lot and they notice that he doesn't make eye contact with you, and his voice is very monotone and really low since he hit puberty. So people think he's being rude or sarcastic when that's just the way his voice is,
Yeah.
And he can't control it. And then if people get confused and like speak up or don't act that way, I've had people that try to discipline him, and I'm like, no. Only I discipline him.
Disciplining him anyway. He's your son.
Yeah, but that's a big part of it, is the social emotional aspect. And he's gone through, we've gone to therapists. He was in speech therapy and saw, a special therapist at school during grade school to work on speech and behavior and knowing, what's right and what's wrong, because he also has no filter.
I think that's for most kids, actually. They have no filter. My granddaughter is, she's about 17, and she definitely has no filter, and she hasn't had a filter for a long time. And that's Carly's sister. But they as I say, kids say the darndest things.
Yeah. And that's the other thing too, is the times he has been around his dad, Jaden will use words that are above his dad, and I'm not putting my ex down, but I mean, by the time Jaden was in 6th grade, he was already reading at 11th grade. And then by 7th grade, he was already reading above a 12th grade level. And anytime there were big words that he could, hook on to, then he would try to use big words when he talked to people. So it became an issue
it's
too.
learning. It's basically when they start using those big words. It's teaching them when it's the appropriate time to use those big words. Is
Yeah.
he aware that he's on the spectrum, or has that been discussed?
Yeah, he is now. I did the same thing when he was younger. I tried to kind of hide that from him and no, it's okay, you're normal, because that's how my biological dad dealt with my brother, who's 18 years younger than me.
Yeah.
And it was some point, trying to remember, I think it was in 4th grade. They were having an assembly and he bolted out of that one too. This is where I'm going to cry.
No, that's
And he
okay.
asked me, he's like, why am I different? So that's when I had to tell him, because
I guess you look at it. It's a hard conversation to have with any child when there is any sort of difference there,
yeah,
and you know what it is, but trying to explain to them what it is and what makes them so special.
yeah. Oh, and that's another thing too is the one of the women that was in they call it sped for special ed room. She was trying to calm him down, about being different, and she started using Bible verses, which is not allowed, but she did
No.
anyways. And Jaden was just kind of like, huh? Because I told him, he's been exposed to different faiths, but he chooses to follow the spiritual faith, basically, like me and my older son. And so I had to pull her aside and say, you got to talk to him in normal terms, not related to any kind of religious, affiliation. So we ran into that too, because he couldn't understand what she was saying when she was quoting a passage out of the Bible. He was just like, huh?
Say what?
Yeah. So.
And how did over the time, and I know Rose has spoken about this also, how did his brother cope with him having autism?
We had a lot of problems for about 10 years where, when Michael and Jaden were interacting, they were totally great. And, Michael was great with him. But if Jaden needed some extra attention or I had to take Jaden somewhere, that interrupted Michael's schedule, he would get upset and jealous. And then I would have to sit there and explain to him, that the kind of attention your brother needs is different from the kind of attention you need. And I had to work it that way. But it was difficult. And, my older son, he's 26, and he's very, he'll pick on Jaden. They'll argue, but if someone else does, he'll interject real fast.
Well, I guess that's his brother, so it's
Yeah.
okay for me to do it, but for you to do it, it's a totally different thing.
Yeah. And, I let Michael be a part of Jaden's life when he was born. I didn't say, oh, that's my baby. That's your little brother, to try to quell that. And, when I had to give him baths, I'd let Michael help me. So he felt like he was a part of things, there were times where I would pump so he could feed him, with the little bottle.
Oh, that's gorgeous.
Because, they needed that connection. I knew what it was like because my brother is 18 years younger than me. And I definitely, even, as an 18-year-old, was really jealous of the amount of attention he was getting, because all of a sudden it's like I didn't exist. Because my biological dad is low needs as well. It's like it runs in the family. And so he wasn't capable of switching roles between, dad of an adult daughter versus dad of a baby son.
Yeah.
So
being that it's hereditary within your family, just an off the cuff question here. Is it something, if you had to realize that it was something that could have carried down the line, that you would have turned around and had your son, or would that not have been a question?
Not a question. I would have had him 100%. And we knew there were some issues early on because I had the
Mm-hmm.
polyhydramnios and, all that good stuff. You know, for him, in order for me not to lose that pregnancy, as soon as we found out I was pregnant, I had to go on progesterone that I had to take every day that helps reduce the chances of miscarriage. And
Yep.
then at 4 months pregnant, I started having to take it was terbutaline and one other
Yep.
medication that to stop me from from going into labor, because I kept doing that, which is something I did with my oldest son too. I kept going into labor with him. So this wasn't necessarily new to me. It was just really frustrating being on bed rest an entire pregnancy.
Oh, that would have driven me nuts. I guess I'm
Yeah.
lucky where I had children without needs, but I was basically went in and out of labour. So I'm, touch wood, didn't have children with special needs, but they've got their own children, because I've got um, my daughter and my stepdaughter have both had children who have got autism. So I'm saying it was probably from their dad's side of the family, if I look at it at the hereditary way.
Yeah. I just, it was a lot of work. There's 11 years between my boys. I had multiple miscarriages.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one was, I was 5 months along with one, and she was a girl. So this was one of those pregnancies where I did everything I could to have him, and I didn't care, you know, if there were going to be any problems, as long as it wasn't going to dramatically affect his life.
Yep.
And it's enough that he only needs me. If it was going to dramatically affect him, I would have found a way to have people help,
Yep.
you know. And my older son, he's a home care aide for the Department of Health and Social Services.
Mm-hmm.
So that helps because he's trained. He knows, you know, how things go and how to calm. There's times when he calms Jaden down when he starts to have a meltdown, because, we lost our dog 4 years ago. And I actually put pictures on Instagram of that too. Um,
Yep.
she was a pit bull, but she was kind of an emotional support dog. She could
Mm-hmm.
tell when he was getting worked up. She would actually go and scoot her body up under his legs, and that's underneath a
Wow.
weighted blanket. That's how much of a connection he had with her. So, but now that we don't have her anymore, because we had to put her to sleep. She was old and she was starting to have a lot of problems. She kept having um, an inflamed pancreas or something to that effect and whatnot. And it got to the point where once she couldn't go to the bathroom, outside or nothing anymore. She was going to the bathroom on herself, and we had to
That's
put
when
her
you have
down.
to do, unfortunately, the kindest thing there is.
Yeah. But that was a difficult one too, because Jaden couldn't understand. It didn't make
Mm-hmm.
sense to him. So, and then when we said, we had to put her down, that instantly got him to that whole "you killed my dog." So
Oh
I was like, "No,
no.
we didn't." But since then we haven't gotten a new dog, just because there's so much work that I deal with right now here
Mm-hmm.
that adding a dog to the mix again probably wouldn't be too great.
I can understand that. I'm just going to say hello to everyone that's come in since Amber's been talking. We haven't been ignoring you, but we're loving to hear about Amber's story. So, with your oldest, do you think the fact that your youngest has had the needs that he's had, do you think that's guided your oldest into the career path that he's taken?
Um, I think so, because he actually went through what they call fire science to become a
Mm-hmm.
firefighter. And I think it was a mixture of me trying to, take care of Jaden and him being around to help, being the only male figure in Jaden's life for a long time.
Yep.
And then we found out, because I had fibromyalgia issues, and we ended up finding out that I had MS. And I'm still working on walking without a walker right now, but it took me out completely. At one point, I couldn't use my legs at all. And
Oh,
so
goodness.
my older son had to come in and help, and do all that. He's the one sometimes when I'm on watching you guys, he'll make me go practice walking because I'm terrible about it. I'll sit there and
Yeah,
not practice.
you've got to remember to do that.
Yeah. Oh, I've learned the hard way when I try to go somewhere and walk around for long lengths of time and my legs are shaking.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So, but we found out in 2014. And that
So
was,
life's really dealt you a rough hand, as they say.
yeah. And then we're living here with my stepdad, who, I don't really think of my step parents as they're just my parents. And
Mm-hmm.
he's got his own challenges right now. And so there's clashes that occur, dementia and autism.
Uh, ah,
Yeah.
that would be. I mean, as you know, I've been down seeing my mum, and she's actually got dementia. Unfortunately, when she was young, when my grandson was younger, my grandson was a screamer, and he would scream for no reason, and he
Mm,
would scream constantly. And her answer to that then was, unfortunately, the older generation answer was, give
mm,
him a good belting. And my
yeah.
daughter would say, no, I'm not smacking my son. There's obviously, this is how he's trying to communicate, so I'm not going to smack him. But now my mum actually has dementia, and Rose and I went in there to see her Monday before I come back, and we had a lot of dementia patients around us at the time, so I could only imagine what it was like for you, or what it is like for you to have
Mm,
dementia on one hand and autism on the other, and poor Amber stuck in the middle with your own problems.
mm-hmm. Yeah, it gets to be a lot sometimes. But I
Mm,
do therapy. I've told people on YouTube that I have bipolar with anxiety and agoraphobia. So, yeah, it compounds. And when Jaden's having a bad day, I kind of pick up on it and it becomes my bad day too,
mm-hmm,
because
mm-hmm.
I kind of suck everyone else's emotions in.
Yep.
So,
Cassandra's just asked an interesting question. How is Jaden handling your MS, and you not being able to run after him if he bolts?
um, well, at this point, he's 15 and he doesn't bolt anymore. He's just bossy and, like I said, that low monotone voice. And he knows I have MS, but he doesn't necessarily care because he doesn't know how to care about it. And it's been a challenge because he will be really rude and feisty sometimes. And it's like, I can't do anything. And he knows it. There have been times where he'll say something really rude and then take off to the other side of the house knowing I can't chase him. So like right now, I don't have his big brother here to help. When Michael is here, he'll help with that. But yeah, when he
Mm-hmm.
bolts, I'm stuck. But we don't go out of the house much. One, because of the Rona, and then because of this. Because I watched a video one time. They showed what it would look like from a child's perspective with autism when they go into a
Mm-hmm.
store. And the simulation I watched, and I was just like, wow. Because before he could talk, I always wondered what he was thinking, what was going on in his mind. And then seeing that video, I think it was one of his therapists that shared it, and understanding how all that noise and all the lights and all the people,
Oh, goodness.
you know, and he would have meltdowns into the store to the point where, we had to quit taking him to the store. I'd have to have, and I only have a couple of friends that I trust to watch, my kids. And so I'd have to have someone watch him so I could go to the grocery store. And now my older son he pays to have the delivery of groceries, and then anything I need in between, he'll go pick up.
Which
So
makes it
I have,
easier for you.
yeah. Feels weird though. I haven't been inside of a grocery store for over 2 years.
I think that goes with a lot of people, whether they have anyone with special needs or they're basically in any situation because of, unfortunately, Rona and the implications that that's got. And if you get that, that's put the fear of God into a lot of people to the point where
Yeah.
a lot of people these days are antisocial because of that.
Yeah.
Socialization is a lot harder, and this is becoming a form of socialization for a lot of people. At least we have the internet that we actually can have contact with people rather
Yeah.
than having no contact, because I think that then would be open up a whole new can of worms.
Oh yeah.
Judy's
It's
asked if
interesting.
there's any agencies in your community that you can give some sort of help from when your older son's not around.
Nope. The only thing I can do is have a home care aide, and which is my older son. You know, he gets paid for 110 hours a month of helping here in the house, with helping with food, dishes, his brother, getting me to doctor appointments and his brother to appointments. So basically, he's our home care aide and his brother at the same time. But
You know,
that's about it.
in the whole scheme of things, 110 hours is not a lot.
Yeah, no.
I mean,
That's
at least it's something, but it is not a lot out there, or not a lot for the time that it would take that he would be
yeah.
putting in.
Yeah, and so Michael, that's my older son, Michael, he has to help even when he's not getting paid, which is, it's okay. And it's part of our kind of family culture.
Yeah.
My mom's side is Japanese, and I believe that the oldest son is supposed to take some, responsibility and help out. I'm sorry if you hear that. My neighbor decided to mow the lawn all of a sudden.
No, I didn't hear anything. That's okay. Let them mow the lawns. I'm just lucky hubby knows that I'm on a live stream. Otherwise, he'd be putting furniture together, and that gets me.
Yeah. Yeah, no, there aren't a whole lot of services, but I've heard
Okay.
people have it more rough than.
Is that lack of services because of there's a lack of government funding, or is it just that they don't think?
I think they don't think, because we're considered what they call a blue state, and so they are willing to give out all sorts of help everywhere, but it seems like they've completely forgotten, you know, the community, the autistic community. So,
And unfortunately, places, and I know even over here, places that are special needs and that tend to be the last ones on the let's give funding
yeah,
thought. So they do lack, and I mean, often over here they actually cut services, but services that are vitally needed to help people, they cut them out. They sort of, there's no middle ground where they don't think of these people, and these are the important people. These are the future.
yeah. The first few years of a child's life, they're a little bit helpful. It's like until my son was in third grade, so the first 2 years he was in school, there was a paraeducator that stayed with him, throughout the day. He'd have one the first half of the day and a different one the second half of the day. So he
Mm-hmm.
was never alone at school. But once he got to the point where he could do things without bolting and all that, they just cut off the services other than the special ed, social emotional services.
That's disgusting. That
Yeah.
really is.
Yeah. And when he got to middle school, before I pulled him out, um, their only real thing they would do for him is let him wear little earplugs instead of the ones that go over his head that were
Mm-hmm.
really obvious. And they let him leave class 3 minutes early so he could get to his next class before all the crowds hit in the hallways. And that was really about it.
I can really understand why you've taken him out of school. Apart from, like, I look at what goes on over in America, because I have my daughter is over there with my grandchildren. So I look at what goes on over there, let alone him being special needs within the community, and what other things that like the Sandy Hook and things like that actually happen. Hey,
Yeah.
Gammy.
But I'm sorry, guys. I can't follow the chat. It's too small.
That's
My
okay.
eyes.
That's
I
okay.
got it on my
If they
phone, but
ask you questions, I'll ask you.
okay.
I can read. I have it coming here right beside me. That's not a problem.
Yeah, because I know that in his instance is quite a bit different from Kenzie, which is no reason why I wanted to come on here, because
It's actually good to show both ends of the spectrum. Those that
yeah,
are high needs and or high. I'm sorry, I've forgotten the word. Those that are high needs or those that are low needs. So it's actually very, very good to show both
yeah,
sides of it, that there are those that function quite normally out there in the community, as opposed to those such as Kenzie, who are more put into a sheltered situation as they get older. And I don't
yeah,
even like that term, but that is the terminology. See,
yeah,
my uncle was severely disabled many years ago, and I'm just wondering now, and I don't think it was looked at back then, and this was I was before I was born. I'm wondering whether he may have had a form of autism or something like that, but unfortunately he passed away, so it's something that
yeah,
I'll never know. But he was actually in those days placed in a home because he was high needs. He was very, very high needs.
yeah. Those places scare me. My ex-husband had an aunt that had cerebral palsy, and she was
Mm-hmm.
in one of those.
Mm-hmm.
And the horrible things we found out before they
Mm-hmm.
pulled her out of the halfway house is what they call it here, was scary.
Yeah, well,
And
unfortunately, my uncle was in one of the worst ones in Australia, and I didn't
oh,
find this out till a lot later. And he was actually he was left with food in front of him, and he unfortunately choked on the food and
that's
passed away because they had an emergency. Instead of taking the food away from him, they left it in front of him. So that's why I'm wondering whether he had some sort of whether he was autistic. But unfortunately, as I said, that's something that I'll never know. It's a question that will never be answered.
yeah. Oh, another thing I just thought about that I hadn't talked about too is, and again, picture on Instagram of Jaden, when he was little, he had to do a sleep study because his lips
Mm-hmm.
kept turning blue. And for 6 hours, he woke up 57 times,
Goodness.
according to all the little monitors. And it was really hard to get the monitors on him because he had leads all over his head and this big monitor box on his chest where all the leads went to. So they were asking me to get a child who is already uncomfortable with new things,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was 3 years old, and they're asking him to sleep in a bed by himself in a strange place. It was interesting.
Judy Mack said we don't need more education on this in the schools. But also, I think she means we do need more education of this in the schools and also in our communities. How can we do that, or how do you think we can do that to get the message out there and to educate other people on those with special needs?
Um, I know, like with my older son, when he wanted to become a firefighter and he went through the training, his goal was to be almost like an intermediate person. So if they went
Mm-hmm.
to, dealt with a fire and there were any special needs kids or people with diabetes and anything like that, that he
Yep.
could mediate and stop things from escalating.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, there's things like that it needs to happen. You
Mm-hmm.
know, they need more. Sorry, my my cat. Oh,
That's
hi.
okay. Cat wants to be in on the fun. I
Oh
think
yeah,
also things like doing what's happening this month with the autism awareness, bringing the education out there, to letting people know that those with autism, they're just like you and me. They are a little special in their own way, but there's ways that people can actually deal with it, and taking the fear away from this person being different to them, and being able to educate their children. because
Yeah.
the biggest thing I had growing up, and I hate the word, is you've got someone with autism or who has mental challenges, and people calling him retards.
Yeah.
I hate that word with a passion. And my first husband, I actually had many argument with him because that word, you use that word around me, I get quite angry. But that's how people, that's unfortunately, I think that's learned behavior over the years. You see someone different, you put them down instead of taking the time to learn about that person and what their needs
Yeah.
are.
Yeah, actually, a dear friend of mine, her daughter is high needs, and she also
Mhm.
has what they call Phelan-McDermott syndrome, where she's
Mhm.
missing the 22 portion of the her chromosome.
Yep.
And her and I have talked about it so much about the need to educate people and everything. Actually, we got her diamond painting. She's doing small diamond painting. She can't do big ones. So unfortunately, it's Amazon stuff, but it's really neat that she can do it
That's
because
not unfortunate, Amber, because I do have a range. We are bringing out a range and looking at the range for the smaller diamond paintings for those that can only do the snack sizes. So I haven't had time to do it yet. So we will have those on the website. Ones that Rose has started doing.
yeah, I think that would be really nice.
Tessa's asked, would you take Jaden back to supermarkets and other shops now he's getting older?
Um, I would, but I would make sure that Michael was with us
Mm-hmm.
because if he did get too overwhelmed, and he's like kind of like what they called it a volcano syndrome, where everything kind of builds up, and then boom, he's completely melting down, and so it's. I mean, quieter supermarkets is fine. Walmart is something that we no longer can do because it gets really busy.
I've been to America and I've been to a Walmart. I could just imagine what it would
Yeah,
be like for someone with special needs to try and shop in one of those places, because that's a
yeah.
nightmare at the best of times.
But I mean, I do need to practice more with getting him in those situations because at some point, with having low needs, he may want to have a
Mm-hmm.
family and whatnot and would need to be able to work and do that and groceries. And though with computers, he's insanely smart.
Mm.
And
I
when he,
that's sort of, I've heard that a bit, that the kids that, I think that part of their brain, something opens up and they are quite intelligent when it comes to that. Because I've seen Kenzie, and the things that that girl can do are like, oh my God,
oh, yeah.
she is amazing. And it's like just sitting there watching her with her different devices and this and that. And she's working out all these things and she records herself and everything like that. It is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. That and but when he was in grade school, in like, it was probably around fourth or fifth grade, just started randomly drawing little comic strips, of things. And that was really neat. And, at first I thought the teacher that we had at the time was going to have issues with it. And she was like, no, as long as he's quiet and still gets everything done, we don't care. So he would
Mm-hmm.
sit there and draw comics in school and class.
Mm.
So,
Do your shops over there have quiet hours? Sarah's asked.
um, they They don't. The only thing we have is since the Rona, then they have the early hours for people that have, disabilities and elderly people. That's the only thing we have, I mean, there's certain things like the Seahawks, if Berta's here. The Seahawks, they actually, certain games, they have a quiet box, which they call a sensory area. And you can bring your kids that have sensory issues there, and it quiets everything down. They can still see the game and interact with people within that room, but it's not so loud and scary. So
Well, At least that's something for kids to. And hello, Miss Rose. At least
Hello.
that's something that they're thinking about, these kids that can't handle the noise. Because I know what Australian sports arenas can be like when you've got a game on and everyone's excited and there's noise, there's yelling, there's clapping, cheering, booing, whatever else goes on. I could just imagine what it would be like for kids in that situation if they've got that happening in within their realm. That would be so frightening for them, because I don't
Yeah.
think they could compartmentalize everything that's going on to understand it, and that would scare me, because I think that would make them a runner through
Yeah.
fear.
Definitely. So, I mean, I think what it is around here, it's the discretion of each business and whatnot, what they want to do. There's no rules that they have to follow and say, like
Mm-hmm.
quiet time, for shopping at a certain time. And so
I
it's been a lot of exposure therapy that we were doing,
mm-hmm.
but the last 2 years have kind of ruined that.
Yeah, the last couple of years have really destroyed quite a few things. Believe me, it really has, and it's trying to get everything back to a somewhat normal situations. So, but a lot of businesses, fortunately, bigger businesses are starting to come on board with this, the quiet times, and I don't know about sports. Um, sports teams there, what they're doing, but to do something like that for those that may love sports, because we know that whether you're on the spectrum, whether you're not on the spectrum, everyone's got their likes and different likes, and to be able to bring that to these people, whether they be children or adults, because
Yeah.
I'm sure it follows through right through their life, that they still can't handle that level of noise. It's a really good thing to see. It's really good that these teams will embrace this, so that kids can still enjoy what everyone else enjoys.
Yeah. It's good. I mean, it's good for the adults too that have autism. My brother, he's a grown adult. He's a couple years older than Mike. Like I said, I mean, my dad had him, when I was 18.
Mm-hmm.
And you can tell if things are getting too noisy or too much going on around him, because he'll
Mm-hmm.
start rocking. Whereas with Jaden will rock. He would hit his ears like this and hit his forehead, but that's ended now. It's just when he starts to feel overwhelmed, he just wants to
Mm-hmm.
leave.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, I've noticed with Kenzie, it's the when she gets really overwhelmed. When I was there, it's always hitting the forehead,
yeah,
and yeah,
And whatever she's singing, if you listen to what she's
yeah.
actually singing, you can tell what kind of mood she's in and where she's heading. So,
And
Yeah.
her little noises, you can sort of, if you sit there and give it like 5 minutes to listen, and you can sort of hear whether she's going to go. But it's still, for me, and Rose is used to it, so she knows what sounds what. For me, it was very hard. Sometimes she's really loud, but it's an excitement loud. But it's very hard, and I can understand. I can, coming from the outside perspective, as someone who doesn't have someone around with autism every day. I mean, I'm not around my grandson 24/7. I was around Kenzie for the times I was down there 24/7, but listening to the sounds. For someone like me, if I was a judgmental person, then it'd be, oh, like, she's just being naughty.
Mm-hmm.
So it's educating these people that, no, she's not naughty. This is her way of communicating, whether it be her communicating that she's happy and everything, or whether she's communicating she's in pain or she's frustrated. It's people listening for the cues.
Yeah.
I'm not popping pills, just so you guys know. I've actually been put on a vitamin regime for my hives.
Yeah, with Jaden, we've had the same issues, like I said, where people think he's being rude or disrespectful because his voice is really low and it's very monotone. Jay, just say hi. Can you guys hear him?
Hi.
That's the voice tone that he's at all the time. So you have to really kind of watch his facial expressions, or the things he chooses to say, which, like I say, he has no filter. But that voice, that's his monotone voice all the time. So there's no fluctuations that let you know.
So you can't
So,
tell whether it's pain
yeah.
or whether he's upset or what it is. So yours, it's all in the face, is it?
Yeah. It's face, and, just now that he's old enough that he can kind of, he can, not kind of, but he can tell me, how he feels and whatnot. Like I said, the only problem is he'll tell people too. I mean, he'll sit there and be like, "You're ugly." Or he'll go, "Your personality is ugly." Because, we've learned, my thing is, beauty is in how somebody acts,
Yeah.
And so he'll be like, "You have an ugly personality." And I'm like, ah.
So, but they're honest to a fault, aren't they?
Yeah. And then sometimes he scares people, like if he talks about his little sister. We never told him. He had a dream.
I really think they're a little bit closer
okay.
to that realm than we think. You're
Yeah.
doing great, love.
Yeah, it was really weird, No one had ever told him it, the loss had happened years before him. And then one day he's like, "My little sister talked to me when I was sleeping." And I'm like, "What?"
Oh.
And I was like, I don't know. It was a shocker. But
Yeah.
he's that zeroed in on things. And so again, people don't understand it. They think he's crazy. It's like, no, he really did have a sister.
He's not
he really
crazy.
does. She's just not here.
I told Rose of a story, and it brings me back to when you're telling that. And I don't know whether my daughter may have had a touch of autism or what it was. She's got a whole lot of her own issues going on. And when I was in hospital pregnant with my grandson, or with my son, my ex brought my kids in to see me, and my daughter's sitting there on the bed, and she turns around and she goes, "Jack Nelson's going to get you." And I stopped suddenly and I went, "What was that?" So I knew what I heard. And she goes, "Jack Nelson's coming to get you." And I didn't say anything, but I think I might have gone a slight shade of white and didn't tell my ex anything. And when they left, I rang my dad and I said to my dad, "Dad, what was your father's name?" And he goes, "Jack Nelson Wellington." And I said,
Mm-hmm.
"Has Sharon ever heard his name being mentioned anywhere?" And she said no. And I repeated word for word what she said to me, and he was taken back. So for your son to say that he knew there was a sister, it does not surprise me in the slightest.
Yeah. He never really, how as adults we're kind of taught to not notice and see what goes on around us.
Yep.
Well, one, that's partly that he doesn't do that, and two, I never tried to push that because my spiritual beliefs. So I've always been like, what you see, what you hear. Just and tell me anything you want.
I'm going to ask both of you this because of your spiritual beliefs. Do you believe those with autism do have a higher function to see the afterlife?
Definitely, 100%.
When Kenzie was really, really small and we were going through all the health crises of when she was a baby, she would look off in the distance into the corner of a room that was always the same corner. This kid had barely any muscle tone, but her whole head would move. And she would look at this corner. And this is before Bridie had gone. And she would just stare in it and she would smile. And then I'd get this warm, like a hand on the back of my neck. And I know who it was. And as she got older, she still does it now, and she'll go pop, 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 pop. And that's my dad, like my real dad. And that's the warm feeling. That's the one feeling I've always had when my dad's around. But when Bridie died, it was like a week or two later, we used to have like a sound monitor attached to her breathing monitor, so we could hear if she was choking or whatever. We woke up at 1 o'clock one morning to her laughing and giggling through the monitor. And you could hear the staticky noise, but then you'd hear her go, "Bri, Pride. And so she was being
Mhm.
visited, right? So yes, I firmly
Yeah.
believe, the fact that it's passed down our female, it's passed down generation to generation, the
Yeah.
gifts. I do believe she's one of the next ones to get. And I'm very
Yeah, and
protective over it, as Amber will know.
yeah, my little brother, he's like that too. I don't know for sure if my stepmother was completely being honest. I call her my mom, but she told me, because they had gone to New York and they were flying home, it was September 9th, and he drew a picture that he gave to the people that were walking by, the stewardess, I believe is what they're called, of 2 buildings and a plane.
Yeah.
So I think it's just in our blood. I know it sounds funny, but
Yeah.
my
There's a reason I actually asked that, because my daughter lost a very, very good friend to a heart problem, and she died all of a sudden. And what I actually did for my daughter was I did a diamond painting of this woman with her horse. And Harley has never met Brittany, had never met her at all, but he sits there and has a conversation with the picture. And when he was a baby, he used to lay on the floor and he used to pick the same corner in the ceiling all the time, and basically almost have a conversation with thin air. So I'm wondering what he was actually picking up, whether he was picking up, because Britt died when he was a little older, but when he was younger, as I said, he used to have this conversation. So I'm wondering whether he picked up on some sort of other spiritual energy from relatives gone by.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of passed down. My grandmother on the Japanese side, she was Shinto, and their belief is very, earth-based, and, the belief that everything, even inanimate objects, have spirits of their own. And then my father, unfortunately, practiced certain rituals that weren't okay and I wasn't comfortable with. So I went opposite of him. But my stepmother started teaching me, divination and stuff when I was like 15 years old, about 8, Jaden's age. So it's just something that's always been around, and I will smell and hear things, but I don't have the gift of being able to see things, but I'll smell it and hear it. Whereas Jaden, he can see things, and I'm almost kind of jealous.
It's a blessing and a curse, trust me.
Trust me, I'm very jealous of Rose.
Yeah.
I have the seeing, and I have the smelling, and I have the hearing. Like like today when I was very, very stressed about my appointment this morning, and as I pulled into the car park to get my x-ray, I got the smell of vanilla musk, and that vanilla musk is something special to me, and I knew that it was going to be okay because I knew who was there just putting a hand on me. So
Yeah. My mother, she always wore Giorgio perfume, and she smoked like a chimney. And I'll smell that every now and then. Whereas my grandmother, her thing, she was old-fashioned Japanese, and she cooked all the time. And sometimes I will be able to smell that certain smell of rice and stuff in the air, like how her house used to smell and whatnot. And I do have dreams. Like I said, I just can't see. When it comes to the different forms of clairvoyance, I don't see.
if we all had the same gifts, it would make life very confusing.
It wouldn't, and make life boring. It's good to have many varied people out there.
Yeah. I think, like, with a lot of children, especially autistic children, they never close that, they don't develop that fear of that stuff, and so they don't close it up, because I think what it is, a lot of people either fear or religious beliefs that the parents may be sharing with their children, that tell them that they can't and they shouldn't, and if they hear the stuff, don't tell anybody, and things like that. Whereas I've always been like, you be you. I'll figure out a way to deal with it. So
like Jordan, I actually don't know whether he's had anything. He hasn't said anything, but he knows that I would be quite open to discuss it with him. Bri was very she was very much into the whole oracles and stuff and that. And Bridie, Kenzie, she'll come up and she'll touch my cards at the moment. Like she'll come into my studio and they're just sitting up here, and so she'll just touch the box. So yeah, it's quite cool. Like I'm just letting her touch them because I want her to, if she's attracted to them, then that's not a bad thing.
Yeah. Jaden hasn't really touched mine, partly because I keep them. One set I keep wrapped in velvet, another set I keep wrapped in silk.
Yeah,
but he loves crystals.
These are still vibing.
Yeah,
these are still vibing, but they're doing really well. They're starting to warm up. But Kenzie's attracted to the healing one. And the most, she seems to go. She just wants to touch the box, and I just let her because, it's not a bad thing. And,
yeah. And Jaden, he loves the crystals. He's got his own nice little amethyst rock, and he's seen me make the candles that I put the herbs and crystal chips in, and he's asked questions, and so I told him. And then there was a couple times at martial arts where he saw me, doing Reiki for 2 students that had hurt them. And so he became really interested at that point, wanting to know how I could do that.
I could do it Reiki right now.
Yeah.
Oh, I've got mail being delivered.
It's funny. I can help other people with Reiki, and I can even do a little bit of the distance, not as much as my stepmother, but I can't do it on myself. And there are people that can do it to themselves.
I'll be back
I've never been able to. So
she'll be back. So I'm just making sure she's putting that box in my. I'll wait till she comes back. I've got a box just being delivered, and I know what it is. And people are going to want me to open it on a live because it's diamond painting related. Yeah, I think the one thing I've noticed with Kenzie is like when I was sick and I was isolating in the bedroom and her compassion came out. It was quite neat to see. Like she'd come up, like, because when I'd go in and I'd touch her forehead and I'd check her temperature and stuff and give her, her Pamo and Nurofen to keep her fever down and stuff. And so she was trying to, she wasn't giving me the medication, but she'd come up and she'd do this on my head and she'd do this. And it was just I honestly, she has that, she was just doing the same thing. And it was just such a beautiful moment. It was every time she came in, and because that's what I do to her when she's sick, I'll go in and I'll feel her cheek and she'd kiss my forehead like I kiss her forehead. And it was just it's the things that a lot of other people would probably take for granted, but with children like Mackenzie and your boy, they're instigating the interaction.
Yeah,
and that's such a huge thing.
With him, he wouldn't come and touch or do any of that kind of thing that we would normally do with the forehead and stuff. His way of doing it is he'll pop his head into the crack, because I always leave my door open. My bedroom door is never shut, and he'll peek in. Do you want anything? I'm like, no, I'm okay. Okay, and he walks away. But that's his way of showing affection and care when I'm sick.
But he's still instigating that contact with you because, Kenzie, when Rory comes home, Kenzie runs out of her room because that's her space and that's where all her stuff is and that's where she feels the safest. So when Dad comes home, she'll come running out and she's goes up to him and she backs up to him, for a cuddle, she'll back up to you and she wants you to wrap your arms around her and give her a squeeze. So he does that and he tickles her and then she'll squeal and run off and then she'll come back for more. And it's something that we never had earlier on. So we know what we were missing. And now that we've got it, we appreciate it on a whole different level.
Yeah. There are times I wish that he would do that, but he's an individual. He's who he is, Yeah. So, I figure out the best way to communicate with him based on what's comfortable with him, as long as he's not being too rude.
Yeah.
Because he can, like I said, he has no filter. And so he will tell you like it is.
there are, you know, in your journey, you meet other people with autism, and you meet, like, I've got a friend, and she's got no filter whatsoever. She will call it how she sees it. If you piss her off, she'll let you know. She'll say things like if you say something jokingly, and she hasn't understood the joke, she'll go, "Why did you say that? That wasn't very nice." And you realize, and you know, like the first few times I did it, like, you know, it's me, I'm potty mouthed, and you know, and she pulled me out. She goes, "That's not very nice. Don't say that to me." And I was like, you know, and I was like, "Oh, I didn't mean to hurt you." You know, I'm saying it like, you know, and in this sort of aspect. And she was like, "Oh," she goes, "Yeah, but it's still not nice. Don't say it." Yeah. So.
Yeah. With Jaden,
like,
it's just he's gotten better now because, you know, we've done a lot of therapy and talking about it with him. He takes things literal. It's like when he was in grade school, once he did start talking, because he was able to start talking when he was 4. It took till he was 4 years old the first time he said "mommy," which was amazing. When he said it, it just was so cool. But if you say, you know, "Give me 5 minutes," once that 5 minutes are up, he will come tell you, "You had your 5 minutes." And I'm like, whoa.
I think the first time we got Mum was when Kenzie was 4. And it was like the first time she said it, we got it for like, I think it was like 4 or 5 hours, just constantly mum, 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 mum. Like, it was literally like that for 5 hours. I was just like, oh my goodness. And but then we started doing the, like, "Who's this?" And she'll go, "Mum." And I'll go, "Who's that?" And she'll go, "Mackenzie." And you go, "Who's that?" And she'll go, "Jordan." "Who's that?" "Daddy," because at that time he was Daddy. So we kind of started breaking it down, and then like, "Who's that?" "That's Hannah." Or Cat, or, you know, whatever she, you know, and that helped her speech a lot. I think just labeling I mean, we had stickers on everything because she could read.
That's what I was gonna say. We made like little the pieces of paper that we printed out with names, and we sat there and taped them to different things to try to help him.
Yeah.
And it definitely has helped because he's a freshman taking some of the classes we're doing are sophomore and junior classes. You know, and he can read like crazy. He talks like crazy. I can hear him right now. He must be talking to one of his friends.
Kenzie talks more on her own in her room, really clearly, very defined and very definite talking. And then when she comes out, and she'll go, like, she'll ask for something. It's like, she'll go, you know, "Biscuits, please, Mummy." And so you give her biscuits, and you go, "What do you say?" And she'll go, "Thank you," really quietly, but she's like really loud in the room. Jenny, I have a box in my letterbox that I've got to go.
Oh, go get it. Oh, that one better not be the box I'm waiting for. Mine.
It's the next lot.
Not fair. Not fair.
I should try looking at I'm trying to use my phone to see what people are saying. And I can't see very well because my eyesight's gotten worse.
No, it's not. It's when I have to wait until my birthday to open. And I don't think he's in the live either.
So you're gonna have to wait. You have to wait till your birthday anyway, woman. So
yeah, I have to for this one. This is from Chris. Oh,
no, it's pretty pricey to send stuff from the US to Australia, right?
Let's see. Cost $28.91 from Canada.
yeah, she did say.
Yeah. Okay. Because I've got bunches of little cover minders I've made that I wanted to send to you. I just wasn't sure how much it was going to cost.
Yeah, it's about 30. I mean, this is a big box. Well, not big box, but, you know, it's a medium-sized box. So, but I'm not allowed to open that one. So I'm going to have to put that somewhere where little eyes won't see it. I'll put it in there. Yeah, it's not staring at me at the face going, open me.
I do find it interesting that even though there's a lot of differences between Jaden and Kenzie, there's certain similarities too that are really neat. And I don't know if it's because maybe, you and I, the way it seems like the way we approach motherhood with the children is different.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's so what with the studies that we had Kenzie involved in New Zealand, like all her medical records and everything we kept up to date and transferred to this research team that are researching autism, especially in girls, because girls and boys can be so different.
Oh yeah.
And so we so we know that her synapses in her brain are slightly mutated in certain areas that are similar to other autistic children, but she's also got different ones than, like, they've all got different ones as well. And Kenzie's got a few more because she's got the genetic mutation anyway. So they're not sure where it starts, where the autism starts and where the 4P trisomy starts. So
yeah.
The
only thing the doctor ever really explained to me is that the center of the brain, the specific part, is what's affected, and they can actually see it using MRIs and things like that. So I thought that was interesting. And I will say one of the things that bothers me the most is when people try to say that, oh, you gave your child autism because you gave them shots. And I'm like, no, it happens during pregnancy. It's a genetic mutation, so to speak,
Kenzie had not had a vaccination before. She had 2 when she was little, but the one that they're mainly talking about is the MMR. Kenzie had her first MMR vaccination last year, and she's having her next one in 2 weeks.
So that dispels that rumor.
Oh, yeah.
I do believe there are environmental factors that they haven't taken into consideration, but I do not believe they're vaccinations. I am actually pro-vaccine. I respect anyone who's not, because I'm actually more pro-choice than anything. Me, I'm not so much pro-COVID vaccine, but that's me personally. When you live with a condition like I've got from the vaccine, you kind of become, no, not so much.
Yeah. Jaden did fine with the vaccine. He had a little bit of a sore arm, and that's it. Whereas the first 2 shots, it laid me out. But I don't respond well to vaccines and stuff.
The hives that I have, you guys can see them up, flared up today, is because it started when I got my first vaccine. So, and then when I had COVID, like the first 2 days of COVID, I had massive flare, and then it vanished, and I actually had like 2.5 weeks of nothing. But it's obviously, I missed a pill last night. I had picked them up, Jenny.
Good. DQ, what study is it that is out there that you think scaring women? Good.
See, Jenny, it's picked up.
There you go.
Don't make me kick your butt.
I also bought a new lippy. And you say, what's the study on, though? Like, okay, DQ, when you say something like that, a little bit more information, love, would be beneficial. Like, what's the study? What are they studying? Is it about autism? Is it about how? I mean, there's always new studies done. Like, I used to work for Medical Research Foundation, and so I actually spoke to a lot of doctors doing research and doing some of these studies, and they are beneficial. Like, they don't always get the answers that they're looking for, or they might find different answers, but they are beneficial.
Yeah.
Oh, that's sorry. That is absolute bullshit. I did not take.
Oh, wow.
I had a split pelvis when I was pregnant with Kenzie and took not one drug, not one. She was my healthiest pregnancy. I exercised, I swam daily. I hadn't smoked for 2.5 years by the time she was born. She, no drugs, no medications, nothing.
Yeah.
They are always going to grasp at straws as to a reason that these things happen. But I don't think there will be ever a true answer as to why. Kenzie and Jaden have got autism, whereas Jordan and your oldest, Michael?
Yeah.
Why they don't have autism.
Yeah, with Michael, it was the same pregnancy situation with him, where I was on medicine to keep me from, going into early labor. And I did end up with both of them, that were preemies and,
Studies that they bring out and they haven't got definitive answers actually frustrate the hell out of me.
Yeah.
Because it puts fear into people out there that, okay, I'm pregnant, I've got pain for whatever the reason may be. The doctors told me to take Tylenol, but and I'm going to put it blunt here, some moron has decided to do a study that said, no, don't take Tylenol because Tylenol is bad while you're pregnant. It can cause A, B, C, D, E, F, G. However, have they got definitive proof that A, B, C, D, E, F, G can actually happen because of Tylenol, or is it because of underlying factors? Is it factors out there? Is it environmental factors? Is it factors of genetics? They need to be more specific before they put the fear of God into these people that what they are putting in their body is what's causing the issues.
And please be careful when you're reading about studies, okay? Because like I said, I've worked in this field, and I did for quite a few years. Please be careful, because when Google says a study has been done, you can bet your ass that a study hasn't been done. Okay, a lot of these, it's not so much Google, it's the people writing the articles.
But it may have been that person sorry, Rose, it might have been that person writing the article has read something. And because they have read something, they may have studied a paper. So therefore, I have studied the be-all and end-all of this is what causes autism. But in fact, they haven't discovered what it is. They've just made an assumption. And I have a saying that I use, never assume, because it makes an ass out of you and me.
I can tell you guys, especially like from a New Zealand medical point of view, there is, when they do a study, it's not like a couple of months, it's like a couple of years. And they look at every aspect of so I've typed up the papers because I was like the head administrator. So I did all the paperwork and issued all the funding and, so I like literally wrote $50,000 checks out. But so these aren't, when I see, New Zealand has done a study on autism, I automatically ring my connections back in New Zealand and go, so I'm reading about the study, is it true? And they'll go, no, or yeah, or we can't talk about it, which means it's in the process of being done. Kenzie's not part of the study now because we're in Australia, because it was based around New Zealand kids. But yeah, it's still, there's a lot more that goes into it. Yeah, Kathy,
well, I can debunk the theory, because there's the exact same basically level of autism that Jaden has, his uncle has, his dad has, his grandmother had. So I mean, 4 generations. You can't tell me that vaccines had anything to do with that. It just.
Well, it's like Pete, Mackenzie's dad, admits that he's undiagnosed on the spectrum, but we know that. We know because getting diagnosed as an adult, which you probably heard from. If you watched Amanda's live last night, you would have heard it's really quite difficult in New Zealand and in most places in the world as an adult to be diagnosed with autism. So, and it wouldn't surprise me if Pete's dad had been on the spectrum, because he's very similar to how his dad was. And there's probably a generational link there. It would not surprise me, like, even though Jordan isn't diagnosed and he's a very, very intelligent and very focused on certain things, wouldn't surprise me if he was a very low need on the spectrum at all.
Yeah.
You know, like, it doesn't scare me anymore.
No.
When someone says to me, my child's going through, you know, tests for autism, and I'm like, oh, that's awesome. And they kind of look at you really strange. I'm like, no, that's really great, because once you've got the label, you get the support, and you can start moving forward. And she's like, and like one friend go to me, I'm really scared because my daughter's got autism. And I'm like, don't be scared. It's like, it's hard work. Yes. Tiring. Yes. There are hard days, there are good days, and there are these most amazing days. And Amber, I'm sure you can agree, when you get those most amazing days, they make everything else irrelevant. Yeah.
Yeah, just seeing the changes that have happened. I don't know if I could play my Instagram reel that I made here, but I kind of chronologically showed how eventually, once Jaden,
Rose, you might be able to
got a little bit older, he could wear jeans, whereas before he couldn't. Now it's backtracked, and he can't wear jean material again now. He takes steps forward, and sometimes he'll end up taking steps backward when it comes to sensory processing. It's like we'd gotten to the point where we could feed him like mashed potatoes, and he's backtracked now, where any really soft texture, he'll literally throw up.
Yeah. Kenzie literally only eats her diet. If it doesn't come out of a packet, it's she's not interested.
If it isn't chocolate, or it is Marmite and toast.
So her diet is like Marmite on toast in the morning, and I've cut her down to 2 pieces in the morning, because of risperidone, we're kind of just trying to tweak things a little. Lunch in her lunchbox normally goes either a cupcake or something, something yummy and soft and mushy, a cheese triangle, a packet of chips, a packet of Oreos, a fruit string, a chocolate, and crackers. And that's what's in her lunchbox. And they will make her Marmite. And I send a jar of Marmite into school, and they buy the bread and I buy the Marmite, and they make her Marmite toast in the morning, like when she needs it. When she comes home, the first thing she has when she gets home, which is 3:30, so she's having dinner at 3:30 as soon as she walks in the door. So she comes in and she'll have chicken nuggets and fries cooked in the air fryer. And it's got to be a specific brand of chicken nuggets, or she won't eat them. She feeds them to cola. Fries aren't
as we found out.
But she's like, and then when she has her risperidone at 5:30 at night, so I give her risperidone, I give her a treat afterwards. So she might have a chocolate, or she might have a packet of Oreos, or she might have a packet of chippies. And she has like her Milo as well. So she'll have a Milo in the morning and a Milo at night. And that gives her melatonin naturally, plus gives her vitamins. And when I really want to pump a vitamin through to her, I just bribe her with chocolate, because that always works.
Yeah, Jaden was on melatonin from the time he was a toddler up until just a couple years ago, because they said his body doesn't produce enough of the melatonin. And so, but I mean, even now, 4 hours of sleep is about it. I haven't slept through the night since he was born.
I have learned, like with Kenzie, I listen. If it's a mess, like when she got up the other day, like Jen had heard it 2 hours prior, but it wasn't until she started making a certain noise that I heard her, and I got up, and she was snuggled up on the couch watching YouTube on the big TV. But I got up, eating frozen bread. Like, she's like, ice bread, please. Like, she likes frozen bread. Don't ask me why. She doesn't like eating sandwiches. She'll eat toast. Doesn't like eating sandwiches, but give her frozen bread. Yeah. So yeah.
So she was happy with a big pile of bread and.
I think it'd be something I would consider for you looking at starting the testing process. It's a long process, but with knowing you the way I know you, and having got to know you very well, it is something I have given a lot of thought to. And I'm really glad you brought it up. And I think you really should look at getting tested, so at least you can get the supports in place that you need. Because I will not be surprised if you come back as a what they used to call a high functioning or a low needs autistic. You have a lot of the characteristics, and it is something you should look. Not that I don't want to scare you, because it's not scary. This is not a scary thing at all.
Yeah,
I'm just looking at this and looking back and thinking back over the years, and as I said to you, Amber, and I don't know whether you were in there when I said it, Rose, I don't know whether my uncle had autism, and I reckon he was high needs autistic. He was at a place called Kew Cottages. And they used to refer back then to like mental retardation and things like that. So I'm just wondering whether he had autism. I don't like the word, and I get angry when people like will call out someone who is like that and call them that. I have lost it many times with people because of that. So I'm wondering whether even those going back years ago that they institutionalized because
there would be lots.
So how many of those back then could now be attributed to autism or to
probably hundreds of thousands of them, to be honest.
These poor people suffered because society back then, it was easier to lock them away and they're not my problem because they're now in an institution. I don't have to worry about them. Whereas if people had just spent the time to get to know them and to find out where their learning was up to, a lot of them would have functioned in society rather than being stuck into some place that that just locked them away for the sake of it, really.
Okay, so when you I've done a lot of history. I've studied history, and especially in New Zealand, and it was easier to put children who were different into homes where they grew up. They weren't families weren't allowed to see them, and they were abused, they were beaten, they were treated like the lowest of society, and it's it's horrible. And someone asked me a while ago, what am I going to do with Kenzie when she gets older? And for a long time I was like, well, when she gets 18, I'll stick her in what they call residential living, where she'd have a space of her own and stuff. But I've realized I can't. I physically can't. Yeah. I would rather put her in a safe place for a weekend and have a break now and then than put her in something permanent where I can't be there and support her, because it's just not a thing. I've looked at the horror stories that have come out of some of these places. Mm-hmm. And that's not what I want for my kid. It's not what I want for any of my kids. And I really don't want that. I mean, if anything happens to me, there is a plan in place. There is people who are literally lined up to be guardians for Mackenzie.
Yeah, I had to do that.
Yeah, we have right next door to us, we actually have a residential units that the tenants of the units are all special needs in one way or another, and they live there independently, but however they have someone that oversees the units. And some of the horrors that come out of that, we actually had to get one woman relocated because she would yell in the middle of the night at the top of her lungs and tell people that she had people in there and she was fucking them and all sorts of things. And it was all in here. Yeah. But it was so loud. So in the end, I said, no, you're going to have to relocate it, because after 4.5 years, that was just much.
My fear with those places is whether or not my child would be protected from anyone that would hurt him. Because I've heard stories like that too about, the sexual abuse. Oops. I know YouTube doesn't like that term, but
we call it
SA. Yeah. And I wouldn't want that for Jaden. So I'd rather just learn what I need to learn, help him with, what he needs.
I'm a survivor of SA. I spent 16 years of my life as a victim. Yep. And so now, and it's something I've been very adamant about breaking breaking the cycle. Mm-hmm. And I've been very, very protective over my kids. And it is not something that I will ever back down from, because, especially with Kenzie, because she's such a pretty girl. Yeah. And I don't say that because she's my kid. Because everyone, you look at her, she's a very attractive girl. And you could see the woman she would become given half the chance, And you know, I would kill anyone who touched her. Like, seriously, I had the perfect time, like the perfect punishment. They wouldn't have to worry about going to court at all because they wouldn't be able to. I know, yeah, just to scare everybody. Do it, get away with it, and bury the body, and no one will ever find it.
There's a few. I can actually give you a few places in Melbourne. There's big mine shafts, and they're basically bottomless mine shafts. So no one will ever find the body.
I just need a forest.
Yeah.
That's scary.
No, there's been a few Australian serial killers have used the forest method, and that's.
You've got to know how to do it. I think Stacey and Chris and I were having this conversation yesterday on a video call about how you can. Chris and I both agree. Like, I've watched enough serial. It was because of a meme I put up where it said, the serial killers sent me back. The kidnappers sent me back because I knew too much about serial killers, and it's actually a true story because I've done a lot of history and like research into to serial killers and stuff. So I'm like, and I watched enough crime shows, like, oh, why did you do that? Like, I literally pick apart crime shows. I'm like, oh, you idiot, you're going to get away because they're going to catch you like doing this and that. Sure enough. And it's like,
sure enough. Yeah, but it's also in the script. You must admit that it's been written in the script. So of course they're not going to get away with it.
I've really been around my husband too much because that's what he says. It's in the script.
So do you think, both of you think that the role of social media, as we're on social media, the role of social media is still creating a huge stigma for people within the autistic community?
Yeah.
But less than it used to be because like you got TikTok, for example. I was very anti TikTok and now I'm on it. So like,
you were I'm not touching TikTok. No, you can do that. I'm not doing that. Next minute, Rosa's on TikTok. And
I have met some amazing people in the autism community there. I've met some amazing people in the LGBTQ, especially in the trans community. And it's been actually quite rewarding to see these people sharing what it's like to be on the spectrum and sharing their stories and sharing parts of their lives. Will I let my daughter do it? Hell no. Like, not ever. But so it's kind of like, it's making more awareness out there. Like us doing what we are doing this month is bringing more awareness and educating people and telling people, like, especially for the parents who are just having kids diagnosed, where Amber and I and Grace, we have children who are older diagnosed, who've been diagnosed from a young age. So we can, sort of navigate through that weekend. If people have got questions and scary, they now know that they can come to any of us and we're going to support them through it. Even with Amanda, like when she was talking about with Vinny being diagnosed, I was one of the people she came to and spoke to. And I missed Vinny. Like, I just thought he was eccentric because that's who he is. And I hadn't even fathomed that he would be on the spectrum. But it makes sense now that, it's all been done and dusted. And, well, not done and dusted for him, but, it makes sense.
He knows.
He knows. And it kind of like, oh, well, then how did I, and I'm sort of going, how don't I miss that? But
but it's something. I think it's something you don't look for in adults. You hear it, you see it in kids, and I guess it's visible in kids because you've grown with this with Kenzie, but with an adult, because they are functioning within society, it's not like it's a big flashing beam to say to them, well, because I'm a bit eccentric and all this sort of thing, I'm autistic. It doesn't flash like that with them. It's like
there is a term for adults that have grown up in a society where they've not been accepted, where they've had to cover who they are. So they've had to cover their tics, they've had to cover their stims, they've had to cover everything that they are. And I'm talking sort of like late 20s and onwards. It's been a big thing where they've had to cover, and suddenly they've come into, like, we've all fought for our kids to be accepted as they are, and so they're coming into a world now where it's a little bit more accepted, and these older ones are realizing, well, hang on a minute, I don't have to cover this anymore. And then they're trying to break that habit of covering so that they can find out who they really are.
Mm-hmm.
And there's one on TikTok, Bug, and she's in Germany with her wife. And she's just learning now that she doesn't have to pretend to be normal. Hello, my beautiful son. She doesn't have to pretend to be normal anymore. She can just be who she is. And so she's redeveloping and refinding out who she is as a person, as an adult with autism. And it's actually quite beautiful. Let me just give this to my son. Oh, love you.
But I have always said that there is you can't really coin the term normal, because there's no such thing as normal, because what is one person's normal is not another person's normal. And DQ, although it may be scary, yes, definitely talk to your doctor, because that's going to give you the answers you need for you to be able to then gain the resources that you need to be able to
live the life you want to. Yeah, live the life you want to. Because DQ, you and I have had some deep conversations over the last 6 months. And, it's not a bad thing, honey. It's not a bad thing. Just, worst case scenario, they're going to, this is how I look at it. Worst case scenario, they say you're on the spectrum. And so you come to terms with that and you get the help you need and you can live a productive life that you want to live. Not what we want you to live. Because I don't do society standards.
If you're not on the spectrum, and there is something there that is made you different from your siblings, you will be able to find out what that is, and you'll be able to adjust your life to function for that. It's a hard thing to do. But in this day and age, it's actually a lot easier for people. It's still very hard, but it's still a lot easier for people than what it was back in years gone by, because it is now much more of an acceptance that not everyone's the same. We are all different.
Yeah.
Sarah, if you weren't on last night's live, I'd highly recommend you go back and watch last night's live that we did with Amanda, because her partner is in his late 20s, early 30s. And he's just gone through all of what your son's going through. So you might get some really beneficial information from that.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm just thinking.
Yeah. For me, I guess the only, I have to put it in terms of MS for me personally, but once you get a diagnosis and you finally understand, oh, this is why this is happening. And this is what I can do because of that. And that can be really helpful. It can be scary, but, I'm glad that, I knew early on about, what Jaden would need. And so I could work with it. Because otherwise I would have been lost, and I may be like the other people, that don't know him, and I may be judgmental if I hadn't known why he's, he talks the way he does. And
unfortunately, the older generation, my mum's era, put it down to kids just being naughty.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it was. That is why that stigma needs to be broken, and things like what we are doing this month is very much needed to educate people and have people go out there and be able to follow through that with that education with other people, so that stigma starts getting broken, that there is nothing wrong with someone who has autism. They're just they're very special people.
Yeah. That a big one for me is wanting people to understand the difference between a temper tantrum and a meltdown, because they might look the same at first glance, but they're completely different things.
It's like I'll sit there and I will listen. Like Kenzie will start winding up, and I don't rush in there straight away. Like it's not something I do. She's winding up. She needs to learn to self-soothe. So I sit there and I listen, and I'll wait. And if there's a certain point where I'll sit there and go, okay, she's not calming down, I need to go in there. And sometimes, so if she's not self-calming, then it's obviously going to escalate. And when it escalates, that's when we start getting holes in the walls, and that's when she starts hurting herself and things like that. So, but most of the time, if it's just her technology not working, she's frustrated, she'll pack a tantrum. And I just ignore it for the most part unless it starts to escalate, and then I go in, because she needs to learn.
And then it's usually Kenzie filled the phone up.
Yeah. Yeah, she's filled her phone memory up. She hasn't quite worked out how to delete stuff yet, or she doesn't. She just thinks it's easier for mum to do it, which is probably more the thing. I sit there with her, but it's just, each child is different. So with us, with Kenzie, we've been encouraging her to self-soothe herself so that she doesn't get to that point, and she's learning. Like she'll wind up for a little bit. Like last night on the live, she was winding up before bedtime. She does this general wind up before she's going to go to sleep, and then you just hear silence, and she soothes herself to sleep.
Yeah, see with Jaden, if he gets really wound up, I found they taught me to just put a gentle pressure on his shoulders.
Yeah.
And that seems to work. And when he was littler, we had a pressure vest that was kind of like a weighted blanket button vest form.
Yeah, I know that.
And actually, they, for several years in school, they allowed me to have him have that and then a lap weighted blanket, because that seems to really calm him down the weight. And to this day, he can't sleep without a weighted blanket.
Kenzie feels the pressure as in, like, I think that's why she sleeps on the floor occasionally. She's got a perfectly good bed, and I can make that bed every day. And she will strip it that night and pull everything onto the floor, and she'd rather sleep on the floor. And she likes that little confined space. There's like so you got like her bed, and then there's another bed width between her and the cupboards, and on both sides. And she'll sleep between the wardrobe and her bed on the floor. She'll put a blanket down. She'll put another couple of blankets on top of it. She piles up all her pillows in her beanbag, and that's where she sleeps. But you know what? She's okay with that. She's safe. She's comfortable. She has probably the best sleep on the floor. So I let her choose. I'll make the bed every day. She'll strip it every night. It doesn't make a difference what I want her to do. So, yeah. Bye, Angie. Diane, the more you guys talk, I wonder if I want to go. Have you thought it, like I said to DQ, Diane, if you guys feel that you might be, start with the basic testings, like it's literally just a Q&A, and see where you're at. I've been tested. I went through the testing because I figured if my daughter was, it's a good chance. Mine learned behavior, because over 15 years you adapt to what your child needs. So, like, I don't like big crowded spaces anymore. I don't like going into big, like Jenny will tell you, I was very, very anxious walking around Central, as anxious as Kenzie was. And I'm trying to keep calm because I'm trying to not stress her out. But I don't leave my area that I live in very often, because I just.
But she didn't have a choice that day. She was going to pick up a laptop, so there was a carrot that was dangled under her nose.
Yeah.
But
I still push myself, because I like to lead by example. If I'm going to go out of my comfort zone, I encourage Jordan. It encourages then Jordan. If mum can do it, Jordan will do it, and Kenzie will do it, and that's how I look at it. I lead my children by example. So.
Yeah. Well, I have bipolar 1 with anxiety and agoraphobia. So I can understand sometimes with Jaden, because I get very uncomfortable leaving the house. I can't do crowds. My friends, before the Rona, they're like, oh, well, let's go to this concert. And I'm like, I can't. They're like, well, let's go see Joe Coy, because he's a great comedian and he's from our area. And I'm like, I have to watch it on TV, because I can't be around. And part of it is certain things that happened to me when I was younger, with SA, and then other parts is just how my brain works, so the chemical balance.
Yeah. I have the anxiety and PTSD, as well as we call it agoraphobia over here, but it's the same thing. So yeah, I understand. Yeah, what you're saying, definitely. Yeah, see, Christopher,
she's the same.
I would rather this job for me is perfect, because unless I have to go pick Jenny up from the airport, and when Jenny's down, I do lots of running around. I literally don't have to leave the house except for to drop Kenzie off and pick her up, or my shopping I can be everything I get can be delivered. However, my husband's told me I have to go into clothes shopping, which means I have to leave the house. I don't know how big
is he getting some new clothes for you? Is he? He's realized that you've got a problem.
Yeah, I got a problem.
Although Rose did learn that when I say I'm going
Retail therapy.
retail therapy, it's very dangerous to go with me when it's retail therapy.
Oh, I do that online.
She didn't get a choice.
When I get really manic, I'll start buying things online knowing, that I don't have the money, but not caring, because when you get manic, things look different. And so there was one time I bought like 50 painting, like small snack size paintings from some like fan sales or something. And normally I wouldn't have done that. One, because I wouldn't do, I don't do those small paintings. And two, I normally wouldn't spend that kind of money. So I guess it's a good thing they were like $5 a piece, the small ones. So I did one time, I bought 50 of them. And everyone was like, okay.
My friend who's been living in New Zealand, she's married. She's actually both my children's godmom, her and her. And you guys will meet her next month. Just got approved for New Zealand citizenship. Awesome. Yeah, it's awesome. She's from America originally, so yeah, it's awesome. Sorry, I'm just
I don't think it with the crowds. It's just those that may have mental incapacities, so to speak. I even have trouble with crowds at times because I get really frustrated and just would want to strangle someone. I think that's more of a COVID at the moment. That's a COVID thing because of the thoughts. And Anne just said she's left the house and she's got COVID.
Oh, look, I didn't leave the house when I got COVID. Thanks to me.
No, but Kenzie left the house.
I went to the doctors and got COVID. Because the only place I had gone for 2 weeks was there. And then I ended up in the ER because I couldn't breathe. Touch wood,
I haven't got COVID.
I ended up with a vaporizer running around the clock. I'm now dealing with long COVID. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I'm not. It's like Rory gets it. He now understands why I don't want to leave. Like it's energy for me right now. I have no energy. Like literally, this is what the doctors have put me on. I'll show you guys. I have to take. And this helps with my hives as well. Vitamin D, magnesium. So magnesium is for reducing my muscle cramps and stiffness in my legs.
Yeah, I do magnesium.
Immunity. And then I've got vitamin C as well.
Magnesium is very good for if you've got a lot of pain too.
Magnesium and anxiety.
Yeah.
I do magnesium, ashwagandha, which I know a lot of people think that's weird. Ashwagandha extract, or it's in powdered form. And then I do the passion flower extract. I try to do as natural as I can because I am on so many medications that doctors have put me on. Actually, the one risperidone caused me to start producing breast milk. That's how weird my body reacts to the meds.
Yeah. I was so when Kenzie got sick, I actually stopped breastfeeding because it was something that went through my milk that gave her the lactic acidosis. So it was metformin that went through my milk. So that scared me and I stopped breastfeeding her. And then at 12 months, when she was 12 months old, I started relactating again. Like full. It wasn't just a few drops. It was like full.
Oh, yeah.
And so I put her back to the breast. And I actually, the time that we would have had, we actually made up for it for that month. Just at night, she would have, instead of having a bottle of milk before she went to bed, she'd have breast again. And it was a really beautiful moment between me and her, So yeah, I understand that, and that's not something I've shared with many people, but now the whole world knows, and that's okay. It was she relapsed like a pro, like better than she actually had when she was a baby, because she was tongue tied when she was a baby, but yeah, she latched and she'd come up at night and she'd lift my top and help herself, and we did that for a whole month. It was exactly a month, and then it stopped. She stopped being interested, and it dried up again. So yeah.
Kath,
magnesium is good for.
Kath, if it's just one psychologist has turned around and said that you don't have bipolar, and and others have diagnosed you as that you have, I would take her comments with a grain of salt, to be honest.
Yeah.
I would definitely, Kathy, I know some of your story and I don't want to share too much, but I will message you because I know how easily two things can be misdiagnosed, especially when it comes to bipolar and this other one. And I'm not going to put it on here, but I think they're closely related. And so I will message you about that.
Yeah. For me with bipolar, I've learned how the different symptoms feel. But at first I didn't. And I was all over the place. And, different doctors were telling me different things. And, I essentially kind of felt like a loser. And then I started to recognize the different fluctuations, how I felt when it happens. And I know when I start to get to that self-harm, place to call my therapist, but it took years. I mean, from the time I was in high school until about age of 25 of seeing multiple doctors.
I've had quite a few misdiagnoses over the years because when you've had a traumatic childhood or traumatic events happen in your life, you end up seeing a lot of counselors and psychologists. And like even now, last night I mentioned I'm seeing a life counselor, and that's for me. It's about keeping my mental health healthy. This, I think this is important, is keeping your lungs and your heart and your body healthy. Your brain's a part of it. So it's something I've embraced, and whatever comes out of that comes out of that.
Yeah. I think the point when I really got to the point where I was like, okay, I do need to take care of myself was when people were saying, how can you take care of your kids if you don't take care of yourself? Yeah. And then when my mother at the age of 51, when she took her own life, because she had bipolar, that was like okay, because there were 2 instances where I was what they call rapid cycling between the highs and the lows. And I ended up in the hospital because I hurt myself.
Bridie was bipolar, so I understand exactly what you're saying. I'm gonna say this to all the everyone out there, regardless of whether you're a parent or not. You do not run a car on empty. You cannot run yourself on empty. Mm-hmm. So you need to refuel yourself. And it's like you guys saw me last week when I had run myself to empty. When I burst into tears on this channel, I was at empty. It wasn't just the nicotine. It was a whole lot of the whole week I had run myself to empty, and my body is runs out a lot quicker of my energy. So if you're not refueling yourself, you can't run yourself, and your body can't run to it, and you start falling apart. You start getting sick. And I think this is part of the reason why I've got long COVID, is because I was so busy looking after Kenzie, I wasn't stopping to look after myself as such. And Rory was trying, bless his heart, he really did try. But you can't run a car on empty. You can't run yourself on empty, which is why I'm going into journaling, and I've started my spiritual road and my spiritual path, which Amber, you're on the group, so you understand where I'm at with that. I need to update the group. I need to do some stuff on there.
Yeah, I have 3 different special journals for different things.
Yeah. Well, that's what I've got now as well, as 3 journals. And I'm just waiting for 2 special pens to arrive, and then we'll be away laughing.
Yeah. I don't think you were here yet when I was telling Jenny and everybody that where I live, I love this specific location, even though there's some crime out there, because I can walk a block one way within our neighborhood, and there's the lake, and I have lake access. Right next to that is the pathway, which is the park. And then across the street, less than 5 minutes away, is a forest preserve. Oh. And because my centering and grounding is nature-based, I love it. I used to, before I start having problems walking, and once I get to walking good again, I used to walk down to the lake, barefoot. People would be like, oh, that's so weird. It's like, no, for me, it's not. That's just, and I do, if I start to get so run down and you know, and I've talked to my therapist and I still feel really yucky, I'll go outside. I know it seems weird, but just go outside barefoot in my backyard and it helps.
I missed the full moon. It was yesterday.
It was an amazing, it was a full eclipse. I had to watch it through time and date.
We still have the moon, like the moon was out this morning.
Yeah.
Was Wednesday morning and this morning. It was, and like, you know, I mean, I do my ritual blessings anyway, but I didn't ground myself, which was something I should have done, but I can still do that. I'll do that tonight.
Yeah. A lot of people I know were like, oh, well, it's bad, this, that, and there. And I was like, it's all how you do it, how you take it, you know.
Yeah.
But
so Cola's groom has just been cancelled because her son has to have, they all have to be COVID tested. So
oh no. So she stays shaggy for a little longer.
He's going to stay warm for a little longer. Yeah. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
So Amber, thank you so much for coming. I'm sorry I missed your first half, but I had to take that appointment while I had it.
Oh yes.
Oh, no problem.
Yeah, they're hard to get. So, yeah. So, I'm trying to think. Monday morning. Hang on. Let me just check. I'm just going to update these guys on. There's a couple of days that are coming that I won't be here till late. I'm just going to check.
I'll just have to put up with me.
I'm sure they'll survive. Okay, where are we? What date's that? Right, that's not the one I'm wanting. That one. Oh yeah. So next on Monday. So I'm here Thursday and Friday. Friday, Kenzie will be in the background because it's a teachers only day. But next Monday, Jen will be. I won't be here at all for the live because I have an
That's
echo.
okay.
That starts at 10 and won't.
I won't be here. Is that the 31st? Is that
no,
next?
that's the 23rd. And then
okay. Yep.
There'll be. Oh, okay. So hang on a minute. The ECG is fine. That's at 1 p.m. So I'll be here on the 30th, but the 31st I will not be available at all.
There will be no live on the 31st because I've got to get the car in for repair. Diane, she fights the cat for the seat. Now that I'm gone, her and the cat.
No, she's got it all to herself.
Oh well, she doesn't have to fight anyone for the seat.
Right. Okay, guys. Now, affiliates, please remember we are doing a live in the affiliate group straight after this. So please be aware. Make your way over to there. We are going to wrap this up. Emma, I'm so sorry I missed your first half, but thank you so much for sharing the story. And thank you. I am so blessed to have you in my life. And I'm looking forward to us getting to know each other, both on a spiritual level and a personal level. So it'll be fun.
Yeah, I'm really bad about calling people. I need to work on that.
All right,
I've had to call you so many times.
And thank you to everyone for taking it easy on me as being the first one of these that I've started off. So I was a little bit nervous. I was dropped in the deep end because she messages me last night. You've got to give Amber this link, and I'm thinking, what? That's trial by fire right there.
Yeah. Next week, I'm hoping to have my friend Kat on, who will probably be on again next month as well because she's transgender, but she's on the spectrum. So she's very smart.
She's awesome.
She's awesome. So I've got to message her today about making a time for her to pop on next week. Yeah. But all right, guys, bless your bums. Have a great rest of your day for those wherever you are in the world. Sarah, honey, I did see your message up there. We will talk later. Yeah. So my afternoon's just been freed up because I don't have to give Cola a groom.
That's okay. Well, I'm going to grab a bite to eat before the meeting starts.
Oh yeah, I've got pizza I can heat up.
Mine will be just something quick because I haven't got time to make lunch yet. But
I'll just be in the microwave for a minute, but that's okay.
Yeah. Okay, well, bye for now.
Everybody.
Bye guys. Mwah. Bless your bums. Haurera, kia kaha, and behave. Remember, love hard, love honestly, and treat people how you want to be treated.
And I never behave.
Yes. See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.